In the name of Richard Boyd Barrett to introduce his question. 30 seconds.
Yeah. Minister, a tragic fact, but a fact nonetheless, is that this country has one of the highest rates of youth suicide in Europe, and also a very, very high incidence of self-harm among young people. Dealing with that is a complex, multifaceted problem, but a very simple proposal that has been made by supporters of Pieta House and endorsed by Pieta House themselves, and the proposers and people from Pieta House are here with us in the gallery today, is that an advertisement for Pieta House's services, the helpline for young people with suicidal feelings, engaged in self-harm or experiencing suicidal bereavement, that there would be an advertisement for those services in the journal of all school students. A cost-free, simple, practical proposal that you could implement.
Minister, 2 minutes.
I will ask my officials to look at the possibility of doing what you suggest. I suppose, just by way of context, it is down to individual schools to decide what they put into their material. There isn't, if you like, a central direction in respect of the materials, the journals and so on that schools put together, and it is up to them to develop them. What we do is provide guidelines for schools, and those guidelines, both for primary and post-primary, emphasise the importance of connection to resources outside of the school. So I think it is consistent with what you're saying, that we should look at how young people can get access to that information. And I am aware that already the HSE and my department have been involved in some advertising campaigns which reference websites such as spunout.ie, reachout.ie, letsomeoneknow.ie, who in turn have links to the Pieta House and indeed other services of a similar nature. So I think there is merit in doing this, but I am conscious that schools ultimately are the leaders in the way in which they deal with the needs of their children, and they design the precise way they will implement the guidelines that the department sets. That having been said, I am very keen to up the impact of what we are doing in this area. We are rolling out guidance counselling, as you know, this year, next year and in the years ahead. We are increasing the NEPS facilities by 25% under the programme for government. We are introducing wellbeing, a junior cycle. So there are a lot of, if you like, trains leaving the station where we need to make sure that those resources that we are putting in have a very strong impact on children who are struggling with mental health issues.
Sir, I welcome your positive response and the indication that you take the proposal and this issue seriously. On another day, probably with the Health Minister, I might be debating the under-resourcing of mental health services for young people, but this is, and I think you've responded positively, is a simple, practical and cost-free proposal. Pieta House, as I think you probably know, are a fantastic charity. 20,000 people have used their services over the last decade, 5,000 in 2015. They don't charge anything. You don't need a doctor's referral to get through to them. So this is an ideal opportunity to do something to essentially normalise accessing services to support vulnerable young people who have suicidal feelings, who are self-harming, so that it just becomes part of the everyday environment, if you like, that those services for Pieta House are there, they know where to get them, and that there's no obstacles to accessing those services. So I would appeal to you, Minister. I take the point you can't impose it then, but could we issue guidelines suggesting it and maybe request that schools would take up this very, very positive proposal?
Minister.
I will ask my officials to examine how this can be best approached. I mean, what we're trying to do is make sure that the school environment is one that young people feel safe, supported, confident, resilient, and have the ability to look for help for themselves, to have that confidence, not to feel that there is any stigma attached to looking for help, and having the resources available, either from directly going to perhaps a counsellor or other person within the school who can refer them on. We're very keen to have that sort of confident support for young people, and I think the Deputy's suggestions are worthwhile in that context, and I will get my officials to assess how we can integrate your suggestion.
For the positive response. And I mean, just to say that the Children's Mental Health Coalition has, in its recommendations in this area, several of its recommendations really highlight this sort of thing as being critical to helping young people with these issues. They talk about the need for more mental health promotion, for capacity of the primary care sector, to increase accessibility of child and adolescent mental health services, and for local alternatives to inpatient services. So again and again they underline the need for that accessibility, if you like, for people, and particularly for young people. And every school child has a homework journal. So if it was there in front of them, and if we could progress this, I think it would be a huge contribution to supporting vulnerable young people when they get into these difficulties, and ensuring that there are no obstacles or no stigma attached with accessing the services of Pieta House. So I look forward to working with you, Minister, to progress this, and hope that we can together.
Final response, Minister.
Just to say, my department is represented on the task force chaired by Helen McEntee, which is specifically targeting youth mental health, and we are very keen that we, through the education system, come forward with initiatives that can support what is a very serious challenge for us. So I look forward to developing this, and I have undertaken an audit of our activity in this area with a view to sharpening the impact of what we do.
Question number 3.